All right. Thank you, Dan. So welcome to the IETF. Welcome to the first meeting. So the first meeting is always the most important one, and this is NMOP. So welcome. Welcome to the people on the remote end of this virtual meeting. So I'm Benoit, and this is Rashad here, and we've got also Thomas as secretary who's going to help us with the meeting minutes. On the next slide, please. All right, the note well, first meeting, so note this very well. Basically, it says it's a reminder that there are a couple of policies in the IETF and that everything you say is actually a contribution here, and that you must be following those rules that are defined there for your references. So spend some time to review those references if you don't know them, because by participating to this IETF, you agree to follow the IETF process and the policies. Note really well that any meeting here, it's intended to be driven by professional people who behave in a professional way, and you will not accept, let's say, a different behavior. And that there are, if in case something happening, there are procedures like about harassment, etc., that on which you can either ping one of us, the AD, or find information online. Thank you. So the tips, the meeting tips. So make sure you signing into the session data tracker. If you go from the agenda, you look NMOP, or whether you go directly from the NMOP charter and the meeting tab, you will find what I think is pretty useful on the right-hand side, all the small icon. There is the on-site tool there. You could get like a light client, or the one that I use is the full client, but I make sure I don't give any access to the video or the mic from my system. So keep the audio and video off if you're not using the on-site version. What else? If you want to participate with the mic, you must be logged into the system, and there is like a button in the tool where you say, I have a question. And if you're a remote presenter, and we've got two today, it's way better if you have a headset from an audio point of view. The agenda, we have 2 sessions. Historically, we dedicated the second session to the hackathon because we have hackathon, I'm happy with that, but also to share your incident, where we have operators sharing incident they've been having. So we're also pleased with those sharing of incident. Now this time, if you look there, there is like a P1, P2, P3. So these are different projects, and we thought that we would do it slightly differently. The P1 is a message broker and telemetry message. The P2 is about anomaly, semantic, and life cycle. Then we have 3 drafts about CMAP. Only the first one is a working document. The CMAP external relationship and CMAP applicability to transport networks are not working documents. Typically, we focus on the working document first, but we wanted to group this together. So for those sessions, those 2 CMAP external and CMAP applicability to transport networks, we're going to time to make sure that since there were not much discussion on the mailing list, that we're going to make a timer for this. Then we have also something in our charter which is called, maybe wrongly, RFC 35 bis, because maybe it's not a bis, but it's just a new version of it. And then we have like 2 operators sharing their incidents. We are also pleased, so it seems that yes, we're pleased a lot these days, but pleased that these are 2 new operators. So in the past we had like Deutsche Telekom, Swisscom, Bell, maybe I'm missing 1 or 2, but now we have got 2 new, MTS and NBN, MTS in Russia, NBN in Australia. And if time permits, we're going to work on we're going to present the AI-based network management agent. So any agenda bashing? Okay, very good. So what do we have in terms of document status? We have the first one, NMOP message broker telemetry, which is adopted. And we have all these documents that we're going to cover today that are workgroup documents. The last one is the NMOP terminology, which is in IESG evaluation. This is a key one to get the terms used in all the documents. And thank you, Adrian, for making sure it's happening the right way. On the next slide, please. If we look at the milestone, let me start with the one at the bottom. Again, Adrian, the NMOP terminology. When I changed the milestone yesterday, it was actually December 2025. So for the first time, I think ever in the IETF, we are ahead of the milestone. So congrats there. And the next one that we're going to focus on, this is like the CMAP, the NMOP CMAP concept. Okay, we're like late by a month, but thanks to Adrian, we've got some freedom here, if we take an average. So we're not too bad on the milestones. All right, the next slide. So interim meetings, we add this interim meeting there. Actually, do you want to take this one? Because there is a design team.
Yeah, so there was a design team which was created. And again, if anybody wants to join this design team, please send me an email. There's been a couple of meetings already. There's a side meeting tomorrow. Benoit is part of the design team, so that's why it's written in there. It's under my supervision. That's where I'm acting, not as a participant, but as a chair. And yeah, we've got 3 documents from different groups of authors, and we're trying to figure out what the design team can produce, in what form, etc. It's still, we still have to narrow down the, not narrow down the scope, but figure out what the design team will produce. So it's work in progress.
And there will be a presentation about the outcome of this design team in the second NMOP session. Right. So last slide. All right, we've got one liaison statement. Actually, it was forwarded to many working groups, ZSM work on agent and autonomy from Etsy. And this is the last slide, I believe. Yes. The last thing I want to mention is that Thomas has been sending one or twice already in a chat window the link to the meeting minutes. It's actually a collective effort, so feel free to help Thomas. And if you go to the mic, make sure that if your thoughts are not captured correctly, please correct them. So, thank you. Mahesh, please.
Mahesh, so just a quick question. I don't know if anyone has looked at that Etsy work to see if there is any overlap or conflict that we need to let them know about?
It's in the to-do list. I have to admit that not done yet.
Right, and a quick question, comment on the previous, so the design team and the work that is going on, is there a regular report that comes out of that to the working group mailing list?
So the intention is eventually yes. At the moment, you know, it's a bit trying to figure out what to work on, how to work on it, what to produce and all that. Okay. So I mean, per the guidelines for design team, the plan is to eventually have something come from the design team, present to the working group. Not sure in what form yet, you know, not sure that a document is actually the best form for this, but that's one of the things that the design team has to figure out. So to answer your question, yes.
Excellent.
And Mahesh, on the liaison statement, do you have a view on this? On this liaison statement, do you have guidelines for us? So you ask me if I read it, and I'm asking you if you read it.
I didn't read the ZSM, but I read I guess the analysis of the report, and I think it was that, yeah, there is work happening in both parties, but I have not determined for myself I will probably go and read that and make that as an action item.
Thank you.
So we should skip to the next one.
So the next in the agenda is
Ahmed, I believe.
Ahmed.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Al-Hassani. I'm presenting on behalf of myself and Thomas Graf for our adopted draft message broker telemetry message. So let me start of setting the context right of why we need this. We have this other document. It's about how we integrate Yang into a message broker. And as you see here in this document, we define some kind of architecture, how would someone would integrate to a message broker, getting Yang push messages from the network to a data collection out to a message broker, then the consumer. We identified a bit of a gap there that the network operators often at the data collection want to add additional metadata on top of what they receive from the routers. Data such as which collection point have collected this data, when it was collected, which router was sending this data. So in this draft, we try to standardize this format. So now the data that are sent to the message broker from different collectors are interchangeable. So what changed since last we presented this? Document was adopted. Thank you everyone here for the feedback, especially Benoit and Rashad here for the review. We addressed all, to our knowledge, the feedback from the previous IETF and the things we have seen on the mailing list. I'm just highlighting a few things here that are kind of the highlights. We used the IETF platform manifest in a better way. They have changed it to be a grouping so we can reuse it without having to redefine things again. We cleared the naming in the document, some refactoring to make it more understandable, especially for the Yang module. One special thing here from Benoit that was a good feedback is to distinguish exactly the names of the ports, the routers, who's remote, who's local, who's receiving or sending. We changed the session identity, the session protocol to be an identities instead of enum, so it can be extended easily in the future. We added flags for metadata. We have a feedback that not all collectors will be able to add all the metadata. So we added some feature flags to say, yeah, I'm able to send a node manifest or not. I'm able to send data collection manifest or not, to make it optional. We updated the documents and the modules we have based on our first implementation in NetGoes so that we have a direct feedback from the implementers. We updated the security, the considerations, and we got more examples and status for the implementations. So this is the new message. So in the document, we define two modules. This is the main module, which defines the message. You will see here it's a bit more clear with 4 different sections. The first section explains the node manifest, and this is optional with the feature flag. The second section is a telemetry message metadata. So something that is about where it was collected, who was collecting it. And this can be extended in the future to add a specific data to the protocol that you have been collected. And in this, we will show in the next slide an example of how we can add additional data for Yang push. Data collection manifest, it's the second thing. I think I have a typo in my numbering there. And then we have the network operator metadata. So this is to allow the network operator to add additional metadata on top. For example, they can say, this is my dev collection, this is my broad collection, or this is my east collection, this is my west collection, and so on. We leave this a bit more open because this is for the operators to figure out what's their best use case for there. In the second module is an augmentation, and this is specific to Yang push. So here we refined the model from what we got from before, mainly from feedback from Rob, who actually told us you guys not doing the right thing here. So we actually allow the collector to add metadata to say this Yang push data that's coming from the router, which was the XPath that was filtering it. Which data store that bring it? Is it a stream? Is it data store? Which data store that was bringing it? which transport, which encoding, what's the purpose of this? The purpose is the field that is configured in the router and we get from the subscription started message. What's the update trigger? Is it periodic? Is it on change? Module version, so the collector can know which schemas that you need to validate the Yang push message. And the Yang library content ID, again, this is very important to recognize what schemas you need to validate the message. Just note here, we try to reuse concept as much as we can. For example, in the transport, we use subscription transport identity. So in the future, if someone add a new transport, we don't have to update this draft. It's automatically just have to add this module when you import it and you're good to go. As for our next steps, we have, more feedback is better. We're asking for more feedback from NMOPs, and we will ask also more feedback from the BBF board, BBF forum, because they are very interested on this. We are talking to network operators for more feedback from them if it applies for their use cases or are we missing something there. Structure makes sense. All the needs are met there. We are now working with Sienna Blue Planet for the consumption of this to make sure now we make sure that we can produce it correctly, so let's make sure it's consumable from an analytics point of view, and also internally for the anomaly detection use cases. Also, in the future, we will propose a second augmentation to support cases where you're actually collecting IPFix data, not just Yang push data. Yes, Rob.
It was on the previous slide, actually. You just go back one slide. I just had a quick comment on the revision label. To align that with the latest changes in the module versioning, you might want to just call that version, I think, rather than revision label. And I would suggest where you've named it module version, I would just call those module or modules, one of those two. So it's a minor nit. I can send you an email if that's easier.
That's, yeah, definitely. Thank you for the feedback. That's appreciated. Yeah, and with this, I am concluding my slides. So if any more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Can you go back to slide number 3, please? Right, so the first statement, thanks a lot to the support and to Benoit and Rashad for their review. That's something we forgot to mention in the intro slide. So actually, we, the chairs, are providing feedback, but it should be a collective effort, right? Like Rob was doing, because we believe that we don't have enough feedback sometime on the documents themselves.
Yeah, so just to add to what Benoit said is, I mean, there's lots of documents, there's lots of work going on in the working group. It's really good, but it seems like people feel they're pretty busy, too busy to provide review comments on other documents. I would suggest, there's 4 months gap between each IETF. Take the time or try to find people who can help you review your document, and then you pay them the same service. Otherwise, because unless we get reviews from more people than Benoit and myself, those documents will not be progressing very quickly through the working group. Thank you.
And one more thing, in the next step, is this in this draft or in the other one where you want to speak about IPFix? Can you go to the next steps, please?
Yes.
Because you mentioned verbally, and I believe, okay, propose second augmentation supporting IPFix. What do you want to do here?
So at the moment, this is to show that people can extend it in the future. And most likely we're going to do it in a separate document at the moment. But let's see how the work develops. Do you have any feedback for us to address this?
When we brainstorm about that with Rashad in the morning at breakfast, we're thinking like, yes, Yang push, great. And there's also IPFix and BMP, but we're thinking like, at which point in time do we declare victory for something, or we just keep adding, and okay, if we're still there in 5 years because we keep adding things, this is good, but at some point in time, we need to produce something. So this was the first reaction.
Yes, so the goal here is to prove that it is extensible for other formats. So I think this would be nice to close it as it is at the moment, and then we have other drafts that shows that actually it's already extensible and people can add it to the future. So you don't have to do the whole thing all at once. You can do it incrementally.
Okay, you answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
So next is Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Sure. Yep, perfect. Thanks. So this is about 3 documents related to network anomaly detection. So we have the architecture, the semantics, and also the life cycle. And I go briefly through the recent changes of those documents. So let me skip this one. This shows just the problem statement and motivation for those who are not involved yet. So in the architecture, thanks to Adrian, we have changed the terminology from cause to trigger, because it's not really the cause, it's actually the trigger of that symptom. And in the service disruption detection section, we also described templates. So these are like config templates where actually the rules are being refined, so where parameters are being assigned. And also the service model reference we changed to RFC 8969. And we got some editorial feedback from Rüdiger, Richard, and Paul. So thanks a lot for that, which we incorporated in the update as well. So the bigger changes are more this time on the semantic metadata annotation side. So we added there the template, which we now described in the architecture, also here in the symptoms. So we know exactly which template was being used for which alert. We added also season, so the seasonality, because like traffic patterns can change depending on which season. And we added also maintenance window, so change ID started and information, because anomalies can occur because maintenance, due to the maintenance window. So it's good for network operation to understand that these two things are related with each other. Then in the example section, we did a transformation into Apache Avro. So we wanted to prove that both it can be modeled in Yang and it can also be modeled in Avro. And then we completed the security consideration sections, did the normative reference also here to 8969, and added Cosmos Bright Lights as an implementation. On the anomaly lifecycle, we also did some schema changes. So based on the feedback we received from IETF 122, we added the URI on the relevant state level and also the strategy and the confidence score. So you remember we had discussions about whatever we should have on the anomaly section, the confidence score and the concern score, and we agreed on NMOP that we should have on both level, on the relevant state and also on each individual anomaly, the confidence and the concern score. Then in the annotator type, we changed to an enumeration, added also merged some terminology input from Adrian, and also here completed a security consideration section update from RFC 8407 bis. And we received a review from Paul, which we are currently addressing. So some parts is already in the revision 4, some will be coming in revision 5. This is the entire, basically, together the relevant state and also the anomaly semantics schema tree all together. I wanted just to highlight the 3 main, let's say, dimensions or sections. So one is basically in blue, the network topology reference. Then we have basically the symptom in green. Sorry, the blue one is about the reference towards the service inventory, where the yellow one is the relationship towards the network, and the green one is basically the symptom which was being observed. Here is an example message from an implementation. It's not exactly to the schema I was showing before because that was previously being implemented, but roughly it's almost identical. And you see here also the three parts, the symptom part, the part with the network relationship, and the other one with the service relationships. Here, just to show like from an example incident. So these are the operational metrics which we observed for that layer 3 VPN. And then in anomaly detection, when this schema applied, is just basically the measurements on the anomaly itself, how they're being used. And these are the so-called concern objects. So I was explaining before the network relationships. And here, basically just to describe why we added the seasonality information, because depending on national holidays, the traffic patterns are not always equal. So therefore, that additional information, when being considered in anomaly detection, it's good to know from the operator what has been considered here. So the next step is we want to have more feedback from the working group, especially on the Yang model changes we did. I think maybe it's also a good point in time that we have a Yang doctor's review, just to make sure that we're here on the right track. There are some remaining issues. So we have that part where we have the network relationship. And here we want to clarify with the working group whether this is well aligned with the CMAP or whatever. We can reuse already some existing items from there. And there is also an input from Reshad. I think we should clarify that on NMOP level, like what's the clear distinction between rule-based and knowledge-based. So I was proposing that basically a rule-based is a subset of knowledge-based, but here we would like to hear from NMOP. What's your take on this? That's it from my side. Any feedback, remarks?
My understanding is those two documents, lifecycle and semantics, they address two of the components in the architecture framework doc.
That's correct, yes.
And there's other components in that architecture framework doc which are open, not being covered yet. So Benoit and I were discussing this morning, and we would encourage people who are interested. We don't expect Thomas to be covering all the components. I mean, if he wants to, sure. So anybody who's interested, who's got use cases to cover, to look at that architecture framework doc and look at the components which are not covered. I think it's 3.2 and 3.7, which are covered in semantics and life cycle, and discuss on the working group or with Thomas and all that to see what can be done.
Shangfang?
My name is Chongfeng Xie of China Telecom. I have reviewed the framework document anomaly detection. Actually, it's related to your presentation. And I have the following comments. The first one is that it seems the current document is mainly based on the telemetry data collected from network side. So have you ever concerned about the data collected from user side, such as some plug-in modules in a CPE which can provide the data for service anomaly detection? I don't know what's your point on this.
Sure. Basically, the document is based off monitoring all three network planes. so that we understand the relationship about those three planes. And so you would like to add also other data to the anomaly detection. Maybe could you describe what kind of data you have in mind?
Okay. The second comment is about the effectiveness of this solution, because we are very concerned about anomaly detection in our product network. So I'd like to know to what extent that this solution can detect anomaly. Can detect all the anomaly or only a portion of them? I think this should be mentioned in this draft.
We can give from our implementation we have at Swisscom in production networks. Currently there are roughly 13,000 VPNs which we are monitoring. And today, in one day, I would say we have approximately 5 alerts. And those 5 alerts, I would say 4 of them are real impact in the network, while 1 is a false positives.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Right. Next. Ming. Mr. Cheng.
Hi, Thomas. I'm Minzhi Xin from Beijing Zhongguancun Lab. So my question is, the data from your the network anomaly detection method is mainly based on the telemetry data, but there are many other useful data, for example, the multimodality data is format of like image or text or knowledge graph or some other format. Do you think it's impossible that your framework can be extended to the other kinds of data format? Thank you.
So the semantics which we are describing in the relevance state and also in the semantics graph, these are analytical metrics. So these are not metrics from the network. So I give an example, like on the network objects I was describing. These are not all the network information from the network. This is just the relevant, so what analytics detected, what is the relevant part. From there, you have relationships with URI where you can actually query the operational data, because that's part of the life cycle, that you are able to verify the analytical data with the operational data so that the operator can say, this is a valid alert or this was not a valid alert.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Thomas. So, Olga.
Hello, everybody. I will present in the name of the authors, myself, Benoit, Oscar, Thomas, and also the next step, we are starting to look at modeling Nigel as well. So the agenda for today, we will talk about draft IETF NMOP CMAP concept, some refresh and summary of CMAP, then what we did since IETF 1 to 2, both updates and closed issues, and then what next, and I will introduce kind of what we started doing on the CMAP modeling to engage more people in what we are doing. So the CMAP draft, we had 5 expected contributions, as a refresh. First, to have a reference document for the concept of CMAP. So we agreed the term service and infrastructure maps, CMAP, instead of digital maps that we started with, and the definition that it's a data model that provides a view of the operator's network and services, including how it's connected to other models and data. The second thing was the agree on key related terms and the definitions. So we did some definitions inside the document, like for CMAP modeling, CMAP data. We removed CMAP model since the last IETF 1 to 2 because as CMAP is defined as a model, it was a really repetition. So we kind of did editorial changes there. And we're also using some terms that are used in many other RFCs and drafts. So we define them just in the context of CMAP, how we understand it, but we didn't do the definitions for IETF, and that's for topology, multi-layer topology, topology layer service, and we used terms resource and termination point from other documents. So therefore, CMAP defines the core topological entities, their topological role in the network, core topological properties, relationships, both inside single layer and between the layers. So this is kind of the core thing that we will be trying to model and see how the best model all requirements. The last 3 expected contributions were focused set of targeted use cases. Here are the use cases that we have in the document. We got feedback from the operators. We had a lot of different contributors to these use cases besides the co-authors. And then we build with the derived operator requirements from those use cases, but also from the hackathons and POCs that we were doing. So there is extensive list of requirements there. And also in parallel, we are working, engaging with operators in different hackathons. We started with some POCs outside of the hackathons, and then from IETF 120, we are having a hackathon with different iterations. So the presentation for the hackathon would be on Wednesday. Vivek will present it at NMOP session. So the updates since IETF 1 to 2, we have 2 versions, a lot of editorial changes. I mentioned the CMAP model term updates, and we have 11 open issues. So for all of those open issues, we kind of discussed it on the mailing list, and it was agreed by those who raised those issues that we can close them. So the document was updated to address those issues, and we had, a lot of activity on the document. So these are the issues. I don't know, probably I don't need to go through all of them now, but if anyone, has any further comments, I think personally that we went through all of them on the mailing list and that they're all closed. So what next? Is the document now ready for the last call?
Anybody in the room have any feedback on what Olga just presented? So for working group last call after the IETF, I'll need to look, I'll take the action item to look at the issues and to see if there's anything remaining, if it's ready for working group last call. So I'll make that decision after IETF. Regarding document Shepherd, for this document or any other documents, again, just like document reviews, if there's anybody who's strongly invested or has lots of interest in this document, who'd be interested in the document Shepherd, please contact myself or Benoit. So a long answer to your question, I'll figure out after IETF if it's ready.
Yeah, we think the issues are closed, and just to remind that the milestone was for June for this document. Thanks. So then what next in terms of modeling and hackathons? The goal is to engage more people in CMAP modeling, discuss different modeling options for CMAP requirements, and implement those at hackathons, either as candidate options, if we have multiple candidates for pros and cons, or single options. So we started, myself, Nigel, Benoit, Oscar, and Thomas submitted the draft for the NMOP CMAP Young. And it is version 00, but it's not a new work because we had the documents, which was original NMOP digital map with some modeling proposals, and then Nigel had NMOP some refinements. So different versions of those documents, we are replacing them. We haven't moved all the content from those documents that may be relevant to this draft. We'll do it for 01 version. But the goal of this is to start discussion on the mailing list for NMOP about the best ways to model each CMAP requirement. that cannot be supported by RFC 8345, but that we identified as gap, and to engage more people in the modeling. And the solution for the external relation, which is one of the requirements, is proposed in a separate draft that Pierre will present after me. It's draft Vivek CMAP external relationship. So anyone interested to get involved or discuss any aspects, please contact any of the co-authors in Madrid or by email. So for the modeling, in this document, in this draft, we are proposing any modeling candidates via augmentation, and we are not starting to discuss now where or what we will put these changes. Like there are different candidate approaches. We can have augmentations, we can have RFC 8345 bis, we can have new CMAP model, either in young or not in young, or different approaches for different requirements. But our goal is to first do some kind of modeling proposals for those requirements, and then later decide the approach for the per group of requirements. Probably the last one would be the most suitable one. So initial table of content for the draft is beside introduction and why we believe RFC 8345 is a good approach. We have categorization of all the CMAP requirements from the concept document into generic, supported by RFC 8345 or GAPS. And then the important thing here is that for each requirement, we are doing some modeling analysis and then implementation proposal. And maybe the document next should have the young module with young module 3 and full young module. So this is on the left, the young tree. On the right are some requirements that we started modeling, but please, this is just initial modeling and proposals to engage. This is not really what we believe is maybe the target modeling extension. So anyone interested, it would really be appreciated if you contact us and join the modeling effort. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. It will be the other way around next time.
All right, the next session is about CMAP external relationship. In the agenda, it's Vivek, but actually this is not Vivek, this is Pierre-François.
Vivek is there. So, hello everyone. So I'm Pierre-François, I'm from the French National Institute for Applied Sciences. And so as Olga already introduced, I'm going to discuss about draft trying to capture formalization on how to, in CMAP, provide links to external information. This is joint work led by Vivek on the INSA side and in collaboration and funding from Huawei, led by Sharif on the Huawei side. So I'll quickly review the why. Actually, 2 interim meetings ago, we had an half-an-hour discussion where I explained the problem without providing a solution. And this time I would like to engage with you on the solution that we've been working on. And then we'll do questions and maybe answers. So, as I said, during the 2 interim meetings ago, we had a long list of use cases where we do not actually want to put some information in the CMAP itself because it's costly to constantly maintain it up to date. But instead, we want to provide a way to describe how to get that information from anywhere else, most of the time the network, at the time we need it. We've seen this across all the families of use cases that Olga has been talking about. And we realized that, well, you know, as Donald Rumsfeld was saying, you go to war with the army that you have and not the army you wish you would have. And we had to deal with the reality of things. We have 3 vendors in the lab, so we have at least 3 different ways to get the same information from the network. And we did not want to have the code depend on the type of vendors we have in the lab, and so we want to put all of that in a formalized fashion and have the code be agnostic about how we query those external information. So how does that work in practice? I know that the IETF is turning into a template fiesta, but actually, believe me, this time it's actually a template where we have requests and parameters describing how you can get some type of information from the network or from any other source of data than the CMAP itself. Then we have part of the model that describe what kind of information you are going to get with those requests and parameters. And then after that, we have relation that use those templates and capture how to use those templates capturing requests for external information for some parts of the network or for network elements that you have in your model, basically. So in a template, you have in the template we have a request that describes how you are going to execute a query to obtain external information. We already put, because that's mostly what we use currently in the network, that we have to do our validation, an example, well, a use of those templates to do netconf queries towards the network. And so there, in that part of the model, you describe how you are going to execute a query to get some information. Those queries are not always singleton. Sometimes you have to provide parameters. And so we also have a generic way to describe how you are going to, the type of parameters that you are going to have to provide when you execute that query. And then we describe, in order to find where the kids are, we describe the type of information that we are going to have when we are using these queries with those parameters that I have just talked about. Yeah, I forgot to mention, we're not in a hurry to have this as a working group document, but we are in a hurry to have feedback on this because it's already used in the code. So in the hackathon, this is how we describe the way we get external information from a CMAP, because we also use this to bootstrap the actual CMAP and build them. So it would be very interesting for us to quickly get not a stable, but a well understood way of describing this and adapt this as per your requirements, because we already have code running on this. So once you have described a bunch of ways to query information from the network or from some other sources, we have relations where we are going to tell you, well, we are going to define for this node, you may use those queries with those type of parameters in order to get what you need at the time you need it. Inside the relation, you are going to say for this template describes a bunch of ways to run the query. And in the relation, you are going to say for that network element of the CMAP, you may apply those requests because it's supporting them with the parameters that are defined in the template itself. And then obviously we have in a relation when you are going to, for a given node, execute that query because you found it in the template and you support the execution in that query in your code, well, you are going to define in that place the actual values that you need to provide in order to execute that query defined in the template for that specific network element. Oh, cool. So if you have questions or comments.
So I have a question. So
Sure.
I took a quick look at the document yesterday. Did you consider any other solutions than the current one you have? Or is that the first one I'm just curious what iterations.
Yeah, the project is 9 months old and we discussed this and brainstormed on this since day one. We had two approaches that actually at the penultimate interim meeting, I hinted at some of the approaches that we had. This is the one we think about. If you want us maybe next time to review the history of the internal debates that we had, we can. Well, if you want to learn from our mistakes, I'm fine to do that. Yeah, we had initially, actually, the internal version of the draft was having two approaches, and through implementation, we realized one of them was not going to fly or be painful in terms of development, and so I have to admit I hid it from the group.
So, I mean, if you think it would be of value, either add it for now as an appendix in your document, or maybe discuss on the mailing list. I mean,
yeah, or I can
it's
point
up to you
it,
guys to decide if you think it would be good.
Yeah, we have a bunch of slides. I could point to an external doc in a ref in the slide, but yeah. But I'm not going to defend the approaches I discarded. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay.
Sorry. Next up, I think is Alex.
Yes, hello. Yeah, I have one question. One thing that is not clear to me is actually for all this template information, who is supposed to actually consume it? This seems to be very much something that you would have, that you would require internally to a management system or the platform. But can you elaborate a little bit on that? Why this needs to be interoperable information that will be exchanged?
I didn't understand the end, but I got the beginning. So what is actually consuming this currently? It's we have two cases. It's code that is managing one CMAP at a given layer, and for which we do not synchronize the information from the network, because it's only when the network operator needs to exploit that CMAP that we need to actually fetch that information. And so it's the code that is presenting the view of the CMAP to the network manager or to any other code exploiting that CMAP. And so what the code is doing is checking which node is supporting which query from the template, executing the query, which typically goes, in our cases, goes to the net to get that information and feed back into one view of one layer of the CMAP. Is that the answer to your first question?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Alexander, I did not understand the.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think that's fine. I do have some concerns about this, but I'll put this on the mailing list. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, please.
Just wanted to add on what you said about the different options, that we had the presentation at the inter meeting, and that there was a discussion and there was feedback from different people. So this option was kind of, there was a consensus, but maybe we can make more people involved in that consensus for the options, but there was consensus for option 2. Thanks.
I think actually it's a good idea, because I would not want a year from now to go back with the ideas we discarded 9 months ago. So yeah, we'll do.
And just on your question regarding working group doc, I mean, you kind of said it. We need some comments, discussions on the zero doc first.
Yeah, but could I have a view on whether we should keep on working on this? And right now, could I have please a show of hand on whether we should keep on working on this and working towards further working group adoption, if you don't mind?
We could ask for a quick show of hands. Now, I think that you changed the slides, right? Because you had or maybe the previous slide, call for adoption. Okay, let's face it, I was searching for the draft right now quickly. I went to the newcomer session and I said the typical tip is that you at least put the working group acronym so that we could easily find it. The second thing is that maybe it's good to have an abstract in your draft.
Yeah,
right.
It's
and
already,
the third thing is maybe to have discussions in the mailing list. So I could go with asking people if they're interested.
Yeah. We pushed the round doc. The Dasho one is ready. We can push it after this meeting. I'm sorry about that.
So you want to ask a question? No, I mean, I think let's get some discussions on the mailing list. It's a bit early.
Sure, no problem.
In my opinion.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So next is Italo. Il faut la remettre.
Okay. Hi, I'm Italo Busi. I'm presenting this new draft on transport applicability of CMAP to transport network. So CMAP is an emerging concept which is developed by this working group. It's, as pointed out by Olga, is driven by operators, and we noticed that it's getting some traction. And the scope of CMAP is not limited to transport network, but includes transport networks. So OTN and WDM transport networks are part of CMAP by definition. And the objective of this working group was, okay, what is the impact or what does it mean applying a CMAP to specifically to the transport networks? So what is specifically the impact of having this new concept over our networks? And the outline is basically trying to describe some overview of the requirements which are applicable to transport network, some of the use cases, and analyzing some of which model is applicable to address these use cases. And this draft is the 00, is a very initial draft, and the main content is mainly working out on some use cases to start exploring this question, answering this question, what is the impact? So the first use case that we look at is the service provisioning. So the idea is that in the transport network, we usually offer services, and we have an infrastructure. The service that we offer is typically transparent transport of Ethernet or CBR services from the customer through the transport network. And in order to support this service, the controller needs to set up a layered structure. So the services are supported by an audio tunnel. The audio tunnel goes over audio links as a path. The audio links maybe in many cases are supported by a WDM tunnel, so another path in the WDM network, and you have WDM links, and this is not the last one. So the space in the slides was limited, and you have the WDM links have amplifiers between ROADM, so you have OTS, OMS links, you have then you go down to the cables and the fibers. So all of these has to be set up in place in order to set up the services, and the controller is doing that and correlating everything on demand when you get the connectivity request. This, unfortunately, was an issue with the PowerPoint to PDF. So the requirements are sometimes in terms of bandwidth, latency, but you have also requirements instead in terms of resiliency. In order to meet the resiliency, the LSPs, the connectivity in the tunnels are protected. You have a working path, A, B, C, D, and then you set up a protection path to E and F to be resilient. However, since there is this long layer of hierarchy, the two links, B2C and E2F, may end up to share the risk. For example, they may end up in the multi-layer to be run over the same fiber, which means that when you break the fiber, both the primary and the secondary part will break at the same time. So the concept that exists in transport network is the SRLG, the shared risk group, which is telling me that these two links are sharing the risk, and therefore, if you rely on these two links for service availability, you can not get the availability that you need. At this moment in time, traditional transport network configure this statically. And the manual configuration of SRG is error-prone because the operator may not know exactly what is the physical infrastructure, and as well, it can make mistakes. And enhancements in the transport network, which may be something with the transport CMAP can help, is to have an automatic configuration of the SRG information from the controller. The controller can automatically detect which cables are co-routed over the same cable or over the same trench, and report automatically populate the SRG information to avoid this problem or any error in the configuration of SRG. Another important requirement in transport network, since it is a multi-layer network, you can have that some alarms, some failures have an impact. So you can have some cases where the alarm is on the client. You have misconfigured your client signal service and your service is down. But sometimes you have an alarm on the tunnel, and the tunnel, as a consequence of the failure of an O2 tunnel, one or more services which goes over this tunnel are failed. The alarms on the client signals are secondary alarm. They are not the problem. The real problem is you have to fix your tunnel. And this go down to the WDM, which can affect more than one tunnel, and you have multiple steps of hierarchy of consequences. And it's good to have transport CMAPs. We think that it should be able to provide this capability to understand that this service is down because, for example, this fiber is broken, rather than the service is down because the service is misconfigured or because the audio tunnel is broken. And the other issue is the risk prediction, is that if you have a failure on the, again, this was the secondary part goes down here. If you have a failure on the primary path, your capability to recover the next failure of the network is impacted. The second failure will not be recovered. Your service will go down. And sometimes this is fine because it's in line with your availability. Sometimes it's not good. You have to take additional actions to understand how to react to this actual conditioning network. Okay. So these are more or less a high overview of the use cases that we have analyzed in this 0.0 version. What is the objective of this presentation is mainly to see if there is an interest from other people to join this work. So do you think it's valuable to evaluate what are the impact of CMAP to transport network? And if you want to work on it, you are welcome to join me and we can discuss, because this is a very initial draft. And the other second issue is understanding where to do this work, because we have two potential candidates. One candidate is CCAMP, because CCAMP is the working group where we do the transport network work and all the technology-specific work for the transport network, like OTN, WDM. But NMOP is the almost CMAP. So since we are transport network and CMAP, both working groups are good candidates. We don't think, at the end, no matter which is the working group, I think the two working groups should keep that aligned and informed. And then we need to work, continue the document, of course, based on input from anybody who is interested on this work. Thank you.
Ciao, Italdo. This is Adrian Farrell. Thank you for the bullet points here saying, where do we do this work? Also, can we try to get better focus on what we mean by transport network? So in the draft, you basically say a transport network is anything that carries traffic for a client network. But then in everything else you're doing, it seems to be focused on OTN and WDM. And, you know, technically, well, IP could be a transport network. So it's just some fine tuning there of what exactly it is that you're trying to describe.
Okay, I thought the transport network was not IP, but in the old definitions we had. We can look around the history. I think we had already some work on what is a transport network.
Yeah. I mean, you might say sub-IP to cover that, but then you've still got to decide whether, for example, MPLS is in your scope.
That's a good question.
And so on.
Or
And
TSTP, yeah.
it's only actually saying what it is you want to cover that's needed. I'm not proposing any change.
In this draft, we mainly focus on OTN and WDM. But I think your point is that where the transport network is also including other layers. That's a valid question.
Mahesh, you can always count on Adrian to catch you on any of the terminology terms. But I think he makes a valid point that I don't think so the transport network necessarily is tied to what you identified in the slides and possibly in the draft. So if you were to take into consideration that it's anything, including an IP network, I think then it makes NMOP a better home for the draft from that perspective.
Yeah, I think my original intention was not to cover IP, but but maybe something more than OTN and WDM is something to discuss.
So Benoit, an author of the CMAP concept, I think there is something important here. So you have yet another use case. And what is key whenever we start the modeling of CMAP is to understand if you've got a specific extra requirements based on what you have defined already. We have a long list of use cases, and is there specific here that must be kept in mind whenever we're going to design the model, and in which you would be welcome to participate, by the way. So this is maybe the key question. Is this specific to a definition of transport, or it's just transport becomes just an extra layer in the map?
Yeah.
So what do you think?
There are some technology-specific elements, and there are some, less energy, for example, is currently looks quite generic, more than just transport. Yeah, maybe the part, maybe the label, the resources are technology-specific, because the label encoding of OT and WDM is different than in MPLS. Yeah, then we can work out whether something is more, there is, when we look at transport OT and WDM, there is a lot of common definitions. So there is something which is generic for transport network, something which is beyond the transport network as a sub-IP concept. Yeah, we need to look at that.
Daniele Ceccarelli, speaking as a CCAMP chair, given the question where this document should be placed. I mean, usually in the past, we have taken tools built by other working group and extended for stuff that is CCAMP related. But I mean, I'm open to discuss whether you wanted to take this here, move it to CCAMP, completely open to.
Hi, Italo, thanks for the presentation. I also want to add on what Benoit was saying is the goal of CMAP concept use cases and requirements was to look at all of the use cases end-to-end, multi-technology, multi-domain, and then come up with the list of requirements that would help us to ensure that there is a generic model that supports all technologies and all layers, So if we can, from your document, bring some requirements into the modeling, and ensure that we have a generic one, not to go again, different routes for different layers and different technologies.
You mean the modeling or the other, the concept draft?
Like in concept draft, you were involved in that, you sent your comments,
exactly,
you were commenting use case and requirements.
Yeah.
You didn't bring new use cases
exactly.
until now, so I don't know. We have lots of use cases and we have requirements. Of course, we can add new requirements. So if you find new requirements, some of the requirements are added as a result of your comments and feedback, so you were, it's not like you didn't have, you had,
I know.
You already
this is only
brought,
for transport network, that's why I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. But I think your comments were broad from the perspective of transport network. So if there are any more requirements, of course, we'll need to address them during the modeling. But our goal is to have the generic model that does support every layer and every requirements at any layer for all use cases. So that's the goal.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Luis from Telefonica, and I will cover the presentation of this document on behalf of my co-authors, Matt, Oscar, Thomas, Reshad, and Lionel. So welcome to Madrid, by the way, so my hometown. So if I can help somehow on anything, just let me know. So, the motivation of this document, basically, this document is framed in one of the work items of the NMOP charter, which is to consider or plan an approach for updating RFC 3535. So the idea would be to collect the requirements of the operators now that the technology from the time that the RFC was released has evolved, and the scenarios of operation as well. So basically, the idea would be to revisit the requirements that were identified at that point of time and refreshing it according to the new needs that we have as operators. So as I said, the idea basically is to collect these new requirements. So a little bit of history about the draft. The initial draft was released, the initial collection of requirements was released during the inception of the formation of the NMOP working group, in fact. So basically, we were working with the idea of somehow revisiting that novelties that we saw at that point on time, in contrast with the release, the ones documented in the RFC 3535. Then we were iterating on the document. The NMOP working group was approved and was formed, and then we started to contribute in that direction. In parallel, there was also this idea from IAB to propose a workshop with a broader scope than just collecting or revisiting the requirements. So basically also open to further ideas. We keep iterating on the document, and in the discussion during IETF 120, so yeah, 3 years, 1 year ago. So basically it was decided to contribute this document as an input to that workshop. So basically, yeah, trying to foster in the discussion also there, and that what was happening in November of last year. Importantly, as an outcome of the workshop was the fact that the decision was to work these new requirements that were identified here in the NMOP working group. So this is why yeah, we are pushing for keep progress in this document in this menu. So we keep iterating on that, and we are refreshing basically the requirements. I will show you some details later on. So what is not the purpose of this document? Basically, the idea is not to make here a remake of the NMOP's workshop. So this is very much more focused, let's say, just on identifying and prioritizing requirements for our operators. So basically much more focused. We don't intend to mirror items that are already covered by advanced specifications. So what is already there, basically the idea is to keep there, and then basically identify those that are not being actioned yet, basically. And the idea is also not to collect whatever random item, whatever random requirement, but just, let's say, consolidate, prioritize requirements according to actual needs that we are facing nowadays. So then what is the focus of the document? Basically, we can summarize in 2 main points. One, create this consolidated list of requirements, prioritize them according to the needs of the operators, the consensus that we could get. And something that we should note is that basically the report from the workshop that is being close to be released now does not update the RFC 3535. In fact, that report does not represent any consensus in IETF. So this would be the venue for having that consensus and for basically eliciting the requirements and identifying and prioritizing them. And then with that list of requirements and that priorities, to basically identify very few set of actionable items so that we can move forward in IETF with the artifacts that we have here. So basically identifying the proper working group to develop the requirements, the actions that could come from the directors, and so on and so forth. So this is basically the purpose of the document. So there has been some concerns and some discussions about if we have here in IETF a limited view on what could be those new requirements. Well, in fact, the original document, the RFC 3535, was basically a small set of a set of requirements identified by a small set of operators. So basically here we are trying to follow a more inclusive approach. So basically trying to capture not only the requirements that are of the operators present here in IETF, but also trying to collect inputs from outside. One action, basically we have started requirements from all the papers in NMOPs in the workshop. So trying to, let's say, collect other voices, let's say, the requirements from other voices. Also, extra requirements from other venues. There was some socialization of the workshop in events like NANOC or RIP or LACNIC, these kind of events that also meet other operators are attending those venues, basically. So we also have collected information from them that was reflected in the NMOP discussions, and also the other mechanisms like surveys that we have released, and so on and so forth. Even now the access to the document with this GitHub and so is somehow open, so whoever which is interested in proposing opening issues or whatever can easily access to that. And yeah, basically all the data is publicly available, so easy to access and easy to comment as well. So essentially, we are trying to be more inclusive in this case, trying to break that barrier that was present in the past in the RFC 3535. This slide just represents a sample of the requirements that we are collecting. We will not go into the details. It's just an example of where is the way in which we are documenting the requirements. The initial description of the document was more a list of scenarios, but then we started to identify the different requirements one by one, so that we can prioritize and elicit the ones that could be, let's say, the more representative from the needs of the operators nowadays. So just a few samples of what could be candidate direction of work. Basically things like rationalizing the device models or working on more agile processes than for developing the YAM modules, better profiling or more detailed profiling, or aspects like reassess the value of IETF proposals, all the discussions about YAM or other mechanisms like gRPC or APIs or whatever. So these are basically examples of what could be these kind of action items that we can move forward according to the requirements that we are identifying in the document. So what are the very next steps? We want to work on updating the network operator list, the operator requirement list. So trying to include new requirements that are there and trying to collect more assessment from other operators so that we can be ensured that we have a critical mass so that can support the work in the document. And the second point is basically update the prioritization of these requirements. As by now, I mean, it's done in a collaborative way. So the idea would be to revisit this prioritization and start identifying what could be those candidate work pieces that we can maybe start activating to some extent. So this is basically, I think that was my last slide. So I think I'm done.
Any feedback coming from the group here? So clarifying question on my side. Do I understand correctly? Oh, you've got feedback? I didn't see it in here.
Chongfeng,
Oh,
China
sorry,
Internet.
Joe, sorry. Chongfeng, just after.
Joe Clark, Cisco. I'm curious why this is an NMOP work item. No disagreement with some of the conclusions or what you want to do here, but now that ops area is kind of breaking out more from ops AWG and becoming more of a place for work, like the 5706 BIS, the operations considerations, and seeing as since some of this work would fall into other working groups, like maybe the upcoming onions, why is this being put here versus something more broad?
Well, should I?
Can I just clarify something? So basically you're asking why isn't it an AD sponsored document in the ops area exactly like RFC 5706 BIS?
Yeah.
So if you want to answer, but maybe that's a question for the AD, Mahesh.
So Mahesh, I think NMOP, when it was formed, it was considered as the funnel into the ops area. And from that perspective, I don't necessarily feel that it's out of place for NMOP to at least consider and maybe farm out the work. And I think this might be the discussion we might want to have is what is this document supposed to capture? Is it going to capture the work that NMOP wants to work on and maybe identify work that maybe other working groups should possibly work on? But really, it's going to be driven by where the interest lies.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, to me, it would seem like there's NMOP specific work. There's maybe onions if that turns into a working group. There's ops AWG. So I didn't know if this was going to be quote unquote the dispatch for that, or if ops area. That was kind of my confusion, because I agree that there is more here than just NMOP stuff.
Agree. And I think, as you rightly point out, there is work that is being picked up by ops area working group for one of the items. I think that's listed here. So yes, I would say that consider this as the dispatch function for both for what NMOP wants to work on and maybe what work other working groups should focus on.
So if I try to rephrase what I heard, so you want to take a series of requirements. You want to sort the requirements, sort them out. You want to work on a couple of requirements that are actionable within the IETF, potentially in NMOP, potentially in other working groups, potentially in new working groups, and there are a couple of already initiatives there. So the point from Joe is actually very valid, right? So what is there in this document that's going to be just for NMOP versus like for the AD to act on it? Say, I'm going to create onions based on the feedback. I'm going to work on the Yang Veloz and all this. So pretty valid question.
So my answer to that would be that basically here I mean, we are trying to cover a set of network management topics that somehow NMOP seems to be the proper place for that in general terms. So have the overall list for the broader problem of network management operations. So
it seems that there's two things in there. There is where we document this and the next steps. Mm-hmm. If we want to solve all of the requirements you're listing in NMOP, we have an issue. So maybe this is actions for the two ADs. But I see that you think you want to say something? I want to put you on a spot. You decide.
It's me? Okay. I want to share my experience in China Telecom about network management, such as Yang model and the service model. Actually, then the operation system progressed rapidly, but the IETF standard process progressed slowly. So many vendors use proprietary models, and they have different implementations, so there is great gap between the operation system operators with the IETF standard. I think that's one of the major challenge. I think this can be considered in the future. And another challenge is that the current work in IETF focus on the basic model, I mean the service model. Actually, there has some new scenario, new cases such as network convergence, collaboration. So I think this kind of work can be considered in IETF in the future. That's my suggestion. Okay.
Thank you. So we just have a few more minutes for people in the queue.
Dan voyez Cisco. What can I say about? So first, Louis, I find this document very important with the requirement, and it reflects how slow, from an industry perspective, we've been for management. I really like the fact that we are highlighting requirements and we even tweaking the requirement. But in this document, we also complain a little bit about the IETF process not being so agile. And at the same time, we have a bunch of questions about, is it supposed to be in this working group or not? Which is kind of counterintuitive. So what would be your next step to move forward to get something concrete? Because for the vendor community and other operators, this is very important.
So basically here we are listing, identifying the requirements and probably working in this dispatching direction. Let's say everything will not be done here for sure, but somehow we need a single placeholder to collect and prioritize all the requirements, and we think that would be this would be the place for that.
And maybe you should mention what other help you need to move forward with this, because again, it's very important from my view, from a network management perspective.
Maybe we just thinking loud, maybe we can consider also including or associating to each requirement some what could be probably our next step, something like that. Maybe we could provide some guidance for discussion as well, for getting the consensus from the community as well. What could be the next step for the requirement? Maybe something that we can do for clarifying all this.
I was just going to comment on in terms of where the work gets done. I don't think it matters. I mean, within the IETF space, it doesn't matter where we do the documents, as long as we get the right people in the room and actually for this document, the right people outside the room to review it before we sort of finalize it. Because we've asked for input and feedback from lots of operators and things. Some who are here, which is great, others who aren't. I think we need to, towards the end of this phase, at like working group last call time probably, is to try and reach out to those operators who commented or participated before and say, do you agree with these conclusions? Does this look like the right sort of thing for you? And there'll be some disagreements there, but at least we can sort of get maybe hopefully some rough consensus. I think that's a key thing for this document.
Exactly. We have to make a distinction between where we have this document and it doesn't matter, and the actions that are done widely in the IETF.
Mahesh again. Actually, I put myself in the queue to set the final set of comments, but I'll let Thomas speak and then maybe come back with my thoughts on how to move forward.
Yeah, Thomas, just one comment. I think we should go into other working groups in the ops area, like the outreach, not external to IETF, but inside IETF, going to the other working groups, get feedback. Are those the right requirements? Do we have additional requirements? And then maybe the authors can propose the next steps, and then these next steps could be reviewed in the ops area, whatever, what could be the right actions.
Okay. So I think the couple of comments that we received from Rob on trying to get feedback, absolutely, we should reach out to other working groups to get their input maybe on the document. And personally, yes, in addition to, of course, assessing what this working group should work on, identify, actually, let's break it down between what NMOP wants to work on and what it possibly is willing to farm out. Maybe that's one way to identify and say, okay, NMOP is interested and wants to work on certain work items that it thinks are a priority, and then when it's open to having the rest of the work being farmed out.
Okay.
Does that sound like a reasonable?
It does sound reasonable. Now, if we take on board new work item, it's rechartering, so it comes to you anyway, right? So maybe the next thing is that I'm glad that we've got the ops area standalone presentation now. I believe the next IETF, we should present this one for everybody for review in ops at least, and then you decide where the work is done and what we do. Is this Onions, is this Veloz, is this a new GitHub, is this a new design team, is whatever. I don't think that NMOP is going to take a lot of this on board, otherwise we're just a new area.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Boris, for coming here and sharing an incident. We had a couple of in the past. I know this is also a stretch to come and say, I had problem in my network, but let's face it, all of us, we do have problems, so thanks for sharing one of them. And we want to understand the issues and how it relates to NMOP. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Bina. So I'm Boris Hasanov, and today, hopefully you can hear me because mic is... I will take it like this. So I'm Boris Hasanov, and today I will make short presentation about one of our network incident. So let's start. Basically, very short introduction about our company. We are actually a subsidiary company from MTS, which is Russian and CIS countries wireline and mobile operator. And we are quite small, greenfield company, like about 400 people at the moment. We are focusing on new version of vendor-independent public cloud creation. This is main goal is to create cloud platform which will be like the same or universal as for internal MTS customers as for external. So operations, infrastructure, everything is similar, is the same. So two levels of main services. It's actually AIaaS, compute network, and different types of store and PaaS. Where we are currently now, so object store is already in production JS phase. IaaS is in transition stage from preview to production to J, and PaaS should be in production till the end of this year. Very brief description of our network architecture. So for DC, it's a typical close, no anything fancy like Dragonfly. It's not for our scale, so typical close. The only moment which I would like to highlight, what we have dual home servers. So single point of failure is not the rack as in typical hyperscaler environment, but just one server. Again, because of difference in the scale. We have 2 DCs at the moment, 2 availability zones, and third is in the progress. So from network side, we have eBGP IPv6 only based fabric as per RFC 7938. We have routing starting on the hosts, like we use Ferrar as routing stack. And Ferrar announced, and we have SRv6 overlay, but about SRv6 part I will tell in more details tomorrow in SRv6 Ops presentation. eBGP routing, as you can see here, looks quite simple, nothing is fancy, so all the magic starts on the host side, and we use our own in-house sort of controller for creating this overlay. So which tools we use at the moment for monitoring? And this is important because it's related with how we discovered our incident. So we have several loops or several types of observability loops. So first one was developed just for monitoring, like infrastructure monitoring, which is based on Kubernetes. So we have at the bottom, you can see like special collector, which collects metrics from the host, Kubernetes metrics in Prometheus format, collects logs, combines them and send to the OBS, which is mentioned, which is here as like sort of black box. OBS has Kafka as input interface or buffer for receiving this metric, and we use a TLP format for this metric. We have also several different types of collectors for collecting different networks metrics. For example, we use BMP, separate BMP collector, but due to the fact that our switches currently do not support BMP, BGP monitoring protocol, it's in a roadmap. We collect it from the host, so we use special road service which have BGP peering with a number of hosts and collect BMP stream from that route service. From the switches, we traditionally collect syslog, SNMP, SFlow. We also already made GNMI proof of concept, and now in the process of transition to develop GNMI-based telemetry for receiving streams of at least baseline telemetry, like interface, states counters, and CPU memory, etc., etc. So far, our network metrics, we have like parallel loop, and we have our own Grafana to monitor it, but in the future it will be integrated with OBS, so everything will be merged, but likely we will still use our own Grafana just because to not have the single point of failure, which will be OBS in this case. And I forgot to mention, and we have third tool, which is sort of like a very simple in-house active PM. It's just basically a pinger or prober. So this entity is distributed across different places in the network and sends periodical pings to currently, for example, to storage, different storage endpoints. And we plan to extend this in the future. So now to incident. So it's you may remember we have like from the design, from the day one, we decided to have this redundant connection and servers were dual home to leaves. We went even more further, so we have like parallel BGP sessions from the host to both leaves, just also for redundancy. And for example, if we will, here we can see storage host with storage endpoints, and he has a different BGP session for data traffic and for self-synchronization. So everything redundant, looks redundant, so what can go wrong here in this picture? And further, we will see just like illustration of first Murphy law, like if anything can go wrong, it will. So at some time, we decided to swap one of the leaf switches, just due to some hardware issue. So with our network operations team scheduled maintenance windows for this swap and started to work on it, on swapping. A bit later on, storage engineer, duty engineer received signal from this active PM prober what several of these endpoints are not longer available. So obviously something happened. As you may know, usual approach is like first one, when something is not working, you have to blame the network because it's much more safe. Like network guys always guilty. So, in this case, yes, we were at some point, but due to our internal procedure, our duty engineer also were involved to this, and we started to troubleshooting what happened. So we obviously realized correlation that we have swap work on for leaf 5 switch at the same time, and we immediately understand what something wrong with that. But we still have no clue why we have like dual home host, why we have some issues. So we expected that all traffic has to go through an hour leaf switch, and everything should be fine. After several minutes, we realized that this endpoint became available in Grafana, so alarm gone. So we started to make post-mortem analysis what was happening, and when we analyzed different SNMP data, logs, etc., we found very interesting situation. When this leaf 5 switch was put back, was swapped and put back to production, so power was on. Initially, downlink interfaces of a switch, they first were come up. Uplink interfaces, we still have no exact reason why they were so slow, but they came up much later, like 3 or even more minutes. As soon as these downlink interfaces came up, server immediately starts to send traffic. So, and this portion of traffic was black holed because uplink interfaces were not ready. So this situation was resolved by itself as when uplink ports came up, but during that time we have partial black holing. When we made further investigation and remembered what our colleagues who are responsible for this infrastructure host management, they made static routes in combination with PBR to forward traffic with those 2 different uplinks into different leaves. So as soon as interfaces to leaf 5 were up, BFD also came up, and host thought like everything fine, I can use this path, and started to send the traffic. So the mystery of incident was clarified because we really were afraid that at sort of intermittent problem when it just on and off. But when, like, how to fix this problem? And basically, why we use static routes, you can ask. Because at some point of time, we decided that it will be more reliable, like BGP, it can like go up and down, so let's have static, it's under control. Yeah. So first of all, we asked our vendor like what you can do, and he said, sorry guys, we don't have special feature which will like allow you to not bring downlink ports up until uplink ports are not in the up state. So we can't use. So of course we decide what in such situation continuing to use static routing is not the best way. And we have to rely on BGP and default redistribution by BGP. But even in this case, it will not solve the problem because we have BFD. And we have, in this case, like the chicken or the egg problem, like who should come up first, the BFD or BGP. And I just, for example, put here one draft which is discussed in IDR, and propose BFD strict mode for solving that problem, but obviously it will take some time to get this implementation, like in FRR and in our switch vendor. So we need some workaround. And we decided, we heavily discussed it and decided to make such workaround. During installation of new switch, after some works on the switch, we will create obviously configuration. So we use currently for configuration CLI-based model. So we do not use YANG for configuration provisioning. So we will use generate BGP configuration for a switch, but with all BGP peering session will be down in configuration. So it will be sort of like additional insurance to not have such problems in the future. So when we will make sure that all ports converged are up, we will use some special hook in our automation system to change this neighbor XXX from down state to up state. So the combination of these two approaches, like redistribution default by BGP and this BGP playing with BGP configuration, turn off and turn on, should prevent such situations in the future. Sorry. And very short roadmap, what we plan to do, not in terms of incident, but just an overall. So first of all, we are working on bringing BMP onto the switches. We're waiting for such support from the vendor, and as soon as it will be available, we'll migrate to this version and start BMP on the switches. Because we mainly interested in management, in understanding of BGP session information when it goes down and up. Because so far we have to use different SNMP tricks for that. Also, as I said, GNMI telemetry should help to speed up metric collection, and more longer work in terms of creating solutions for more advanced or additional visibility of traffic flow distribution through the fabric. Because as this example said, we sometimes we struggle in understanding where are which flows, how they were hashed between different interfaces. Maybe alternative marking on our approach could help with this. So currently it's R&D task. And last one but not least, it's increasing active PM management to add more tools, collect more metrics. And in regards to incident management, we are very interested in this like using some labeling system to label different metrics during like steady state and during the incident to be able maybe more later to make more good deep postmortem analysis, and maybe in some like sunny future even prevent some incidents. So that's what all from my side for today.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Please go quickly. Dan, please go to the mailing list for your question. Please, we want to make sure we've got the last presenter.
Yeah, Thomas. Thanks, Boris, for sharing this. This is really great. One small clarification question, like on slide 14, you mentioned comms. Are those the standard communities?
Yes, it's just BGP communities.
And another question, are you correlating the S-flow data with the BMP data?
Not yet, to be honest. It's also on a roadmap. Yeah, because
Exactly, because you mentioned at the very end, like coloring, right? So
Yeah.
I think you can use the communities actually to color the passes and do the
Yes,
correlation.
that's one of possible ways. Yeah.
And I assume you were able to quickly detect the incident because of the probing, right?
Yes. That was like our first source of information. Yeah.
Exactly, and my suggestion is also work on like the traffic monitoring, because probes are just a simulation.
Yes, of course, there are delays. Yes,
Exactly.
yeah.
Good, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So the last one is Brad and Alistair from Down Under. Can you hear us and can you start?
So, yep, so we can start if you can hear me. Can you hear me all right?
A little bit soft.
A little bit louder? A little bit louder? Okay. So I suppose this one we did consider with, and as a bit of a lead in, I suppose, Alistair's from our Network Management Center. So when we looked at what is NBN's incidents, I thought the
you will have to
best answer
speak
would be...
louder, Brad.
Louder?
Yes, please.
Wow, okay. Can't get much closer, it's on my head. So other than that, I'll turn my headset off. Maybe that will pick up a lot better. But
so the Miteco people, can you please increase the volume whenever Brad is speaking? I would appreciate. Thank you.
how is that? Is that a bit better or no? I'll yell. There's no one else here at work. So we took a view, or I took a view of asking the Network Management Center as to what is their largest incidents and where is their incident concerns. So we took that view, which may be a bit different to everybody else. So just a bit of introduction, I suppose, of what is NBN to start with. So we're a wholesale layer 2 provider. We have approximately 200 odd retailers that connect to us via 121 points of interconnect across Australia, right? So we cover a large portion of Australia. We've got 12.5 million premises that are connected. And we pass, I suppose, have 8.6 million customers at the moment on that connections. But we cover, large portions of Australia in terms of, 7.7 million square kilometres, which means we also have lots of access technologies. So if you see the list there, we've got fibre to the building, we've got fibre to the curb, we've got fibre to the premise. We obviously have business services. We've got fibre to the node. We have hybrid fibre coax in terms of HFC. We have fixed wireless access. And we also have our own satellites. They all aggregate into our core network that gives us those 121 points of interconnect to the rest of the retailers around the country as well. And having so many access technologies, and we refer to as a multi-technology mix, there's a number of technologies, of course, that are powered outside from an outside plant aspect point of view. And as per some of the previous presentations, we have a lot of issues around shared fate and cables and cable cuts. So at that point, I'll probably hand over to Alistair, and Alistair will run through the rest of the presentation in terms of why this causes us such a concern, I suppose, as we move forward. Alistair?
Excellent. Yeah, and can people hear me okay?
Yes,
All
thank
good?
you.
Excellent, that's great. So look out, this slide's really going through what we're trying to do at MBN is balance a high customer experience, but it can't be customer experience at all cost. We've got a business to run and we've got to balance costs as well. So the challenge we're always facing is how do we keep the customers happy, but not have all our budget spent trying to run around and make them happy and keep the customers up and the network as resilient as we can. So and one of the other challenges we have is that we've got an awful lot of information and an awful lot of different systems and databases, and we're reliant on field engineers to be our eyes and ears on the ground, because we can have one alarm that comes into the network, but it could have 5 or 6 different root causes. So what we're really trying to get to is how can we get all our information together that allows us to get the right field resource there at the right time to keep the customers happy and keep the costs low. So that's the real challenge that we wrestle with at the moment. Can you just move on to the next slide, please? So this is an example of our FTTN network. We have multiple DSLAMs in the network feeding all the homes, and the green is where we've got power at those homes, and also the blue is where we've got power. The difference with the green is the DSLAM's got power as well, but DSLAM 2 and DSLAM 3 have no power, and they'll be running on batteries. So what we need to do in some of these cases is if we put a generator out there, for example, we'd have an AC mains fail. When we hook up the generator, the AC mains fail will clear. The delivery partner who's gone out there to put the generator on site, he'll head off to the next job. And meanwhile, the power may come back to all those homes that are in red. Now, if we've still got generators out there, we have to remember our AC mains alarms have cleared. So that means to be able to tell if the power's cleared or not, we need NOC engineers to log into the network and constantly rescan through all the modem data to find out if these modems have come back online. There's no trigger for us to be able to do that, and therefore the cost is having the generators out in the field for a prolonged period of time. And of course, that eats into our green footprint as well as these generators running on diesel and that kind of thing. So really, to try and save those costs, we want the DP to go back out there and retrieve the generator in this case. So it's really been able to solve our problems. We need to centralize the information and really give us some contextualized meaning to it. That really needs the engineers that are familiar with the process to build the use cases and go, well, this is what this data actually means for us. And this is often the cases that they come up with, these types of things. Can you just go on to the next slide, please? So we have, we're also trying to put in a lot of automation into our operations center. And as I called out earlier, if you have one alarm, you could have 4 or 5 root causes. So what we end up doing is trying to, and in the past, is deliver an automation for one specific use case, and then we find that it only works a percentage of the time because it's one of the other root causes. I always picture it in a way that in the early days we used to rely on maps to get around on the road. Then we got TomToms, and those two methods told us how to get from A to B. Maybe it was from my house to my work, but they didn't tell you other information behind it. So it may tell us that I have to go the freeway because that's the quickest way most of the time. However, if I use something like Google Maps today, there's a crash on the freeway or it's a Monday morning, it's busy. Therefore, it's going to route me a different path. This is the same in our network. On that example on the previous slide, I had a power outage. If those homes were up and I still had an AC mains fail, well, it could be something else. It could be that the RCD is tripped. So often in that journey of having an incident, in this example, a power outage, the root cause actually changes because it's went from being a power outage. There's been a brownout in the power network. It's caused my RCD to trip, and now the root cause is actually I need to get the residual current switch reset. So to build automation workflows, it really needs this context behind it and being able to bring all that data together and centralize it rather than have it off in different places. And just on the next slide, this was our first use case. Sorry, I can just flick to the last slide, please. So this was our first use case that we used when we built this knowledge graph. And what we were doing was, in the case of the FTTN node, we were getting the AC mains fail. We'd send a field engineer out who happened to be an electrician, so we were paying extra money for that. We would send him out with a generator and some fuel. So it was really a high cost. To now break that down, what we do through the knowledge graph is we can tell where it is an RCD trip. And instead of paying for the expensive electrician and the generator to go out there, we can send a much cheaper resource. So it's a bit like, if I was going to a restaurant, well, what are we looking for? Are we looking for a Michelin star chef, or are we looking for some kid who flips burgers in a fast food restaurant? That's the difference in the costs that we're looking for with our delivery partners. It was just an RCD, it's quite a low level of skill compared to needing a qualified electrician to go out there, or a generator and fuel as well. So there's quite a lot of safety measures, so you end up paying extra money there. So that's where we're trying to use that insight as much as we can to try and get the good customer experience, keep the customers up and happy and connected to our network, but also doing it as cheaply as we possibly can. Any questions?
Any questions or feedback from the room?
And I think, as Alistair said, this is just one use case, right? It's the same for everything for us in terms of that's outside powered as well. And it applies even for cable cuts where you get partial cable cuts. So some services still keep working and other services have failed as well.
That's right. There's so many use cases. I'm often like a child in a lolly shop, as we start to see how we can pull the data together, and our engineers get very excited as they start to go, well, this use case is great, but now if you can give me a little bit more information, I can use it in other ways as well. So being able to get the engineers and the NOC talking to the developers and breaking down those barriers where they can just go and code us something. Overnight, we're making a lot of business changes just by getting people talking to one another and getting that innovation really happening.
Thank you, Alistair and Brad, for presenting your incident. And now I understand Brad's interest in knowledge graphs, slides 5 and 6. Thank you. It's not a coincidence. And thanks again for sharing your incident.
Thank you.
Hi, Nacho from Telefonica. Just a quick comment. Well, thanks a lot for the presentation. I like to see that you're exploring knowledge graphs for your use cases. I would like to know your opinion on the use of knowledge graphs for real or near real-time applications. Maybe we can discuss it in more detail on Tuesday in the side meeting, but this is one of our concerns.
Nacho, I think the short answer at the moment is we're investigating that as well. So we haven't discarded as an option on some particular use cases that the NMC actually has.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much, Brad, Alistair, and also Boris. So what is interesting to us as well in the working group, and I know that you're more and more involved, Brad, Boris, in the working group, is to see how your incident could be answered with the different network anomaly and incident document and codes that we have been working in the working group. So thanks for this. This is the end of the NMOP working group, unless you want to add something. So there is a second session somewhere in the week, Wednesday. So see you there, and thank you to everybody.